Yesterday's video was difficult because I was not in the mood. So today I woke up at 2:45 in the morning and was reading some stuff and couldn't go back to sleep. So I thought I'd make a video early this morning and see how it goes. It's chilly, it's cold. It's like 5 degrees centigrade in the 40s. So it's chilly but nice. So I talk about overshoot. I'm trying to talk about what we might be able to do to change our predicament, create a better socioeconomic system, and what that might require us to do and to sacrifice. But before we could do anything like that, we would need to understand reality through the lens of the natural sciences and different ways of valuing who we are, what we are, where we live, and so on. Unfortunately, it requires becoming a tree hugger rather than a consumer at the shopping mall, or somebody who's shopping like a billionaire online. That's a difficult pill to swallow. I understand that. So what ticked me off or got me going, yesterday a friend called from Australia, VoIP call, and basically he wanted to gloat about Trump or make some points about Trump. Why Trump won. Everybody's got their theories, why the Democrats lost. Anyway, it boiled down to some personal kind of attacks. I know he didn't mean it in a really nasty way, but more or less, I'm an elitist. It's people like me that caused the whole problem in the first place. When you suggest people read or that they're ignorant of certain things, they hate you for that because they think you're smarter than they are, and that pisses them off. And I understand that. But the truth is, if you haven't read certain things or looked at the world in a certain way, you're not going to be in the same universe as another person who sees things differently. I keep talking about how our modern way of life is addictive and that we're all addicts, and that's absolutely true. So I'm going to discuss this piece about what is wetiko, which is a Native American term. It's like the social disease that I keep referring to, being caught in the great game, in this paradigm, in this way of thinking, trapped in these ideologies and religious beliefs and so on. So I want to just tell you what my reality is. I keep talking about my book page. Read a lot of books, so what? Doesn't make me holy. But unfortunately, you have to read and explore to get it. So you read Nietzsche, you read Carlyle, you read neo-reactionary people's work, you read conservative people's work, and so on. Try to understand where they're coming from, see if there's any value there, but at least try to understand where they're coming from. So my friend suggested that I don't understand Americans because I've lived abroad for decades, and therefore I'm out of touch and all that. Well, I pay attention. I'm not out of touch. I know Americans here in Portugal, and I pay attention to what's going on in the world, to current events, as you well know. So I know what's going on in America. I know there are two countries in America. There's the Democratic and the Republican. But in reality, there's just one party, and there's just one system. And that system is composed of neoliberalism, neoconservatism, Zionism, Christian Zionism, materialism, capitalism, colonialism, all these kinds of isms. That's what makes up our system. That's what we're all about. So, um, yeah, so I'm going to have to look this up real quick because Caitlin Johnson said something interesting today in her post. Ah, thank you. That was a mess. So, yeah, I didn't save it. That's the problem. All right. So, anyway. So she says the face at the front desk changes. The corporation remains the same. So I talk about oligarchy. You know, we live in a global oligarchy, actually. You have your Russian oligarchs, your Chinese oligarchs, your Indian oligarchs. Anyway, money controls the thing. We're about modernity. We're about technology. We're about industry. We're about colonialism. We're about depletion, drawdown, maximum power principle, Jevons paradox, all this kind of stuff that I keep talking about. But, you know, people don't want to listen to this because it's unfamiliar to most people. And so this is one of these things that once you see it, you can't unsee it. So once your worldview gets inspired by, or once you become woke to this way of looking at the world through physics, through natural sciences, through entropy, through thermodynamics, through energy, through nature, through ecology, on and on and on, you can't unsee it. It's just stuck with you and you can't look away anymore. So yeah, you could say, well, forget it. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to go to Wall Street, make money or whatever, which is fine. People do that and that's great. And some people are ignorant of these things. Some people are willfully ignorant, the head in the sand type thing. They just don't want to see it. Hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. Only in this case, it's like, don't understand reality, avoid it at all cost. So my friend's suggesting that I'm an elitist, that he's seen my pictures on Facebook and my garden, and he knows I've never used a shovel in my life. Well, he's making a lot of assumptions about me and my life. We met once in Malaysia a long time ago and kept in touch through social media. And that's it. But, you know, I guess he thinks he's more working class, but it doesn't matter. He has the sensibility that Trump's cool and Elon Musk is cool. And I don't think so. I think they're con men and gangsters. And I think Americans love their con men and gangsters. They just love them. You know, look at all the TV shows and series and books and legends and in American history. We just love our gangsters and our con men. We think it's cool. We respect them. And so I was just pointing out to him that I just don't think that MAGA Nation or Trump voters are going to be very pleased with the way things are in 4 years. Why is that? Because when you argue with reality, you always lose. You can't argue with nature. Nature trumps big business every time. So, unfortunately, things aren't going to get better. Trump and Elon don't care about your interests at all. They are going to loot the world as much as they possibly can and get your attention and love and all that kind of stuff. And you're going to go along with it because you just don't know any better. And because you're addicted to your own lifestyle, narrow-minded, myopic, caught in your bubble, in your silo, whatever. And you have your faith, you have your belief systems, and believing what you believe is much more comfortable and happy and feels better than learning something. So if somebody like me says you need to learn something, you're going to hate me. I'm a jerk. I'm an elitist. I'm a pansy. I don't have any calluses on my hands. It's all bullshit. But anyway, it becomes personal. It becomes tribal. And so you're never going to, convince a person who's a MAGA guy that, it's idiotic. And they're never going to accept your opinion. Even if you just say, look, it's my opinion. If you love Trump, tell me why you love him. It's okay. It's your opinion. I'll listen to you. That's cool. We don't have to get personal. You don't have to tell me what an elitist prick I am and that I caused all the trouble in the States because I just don't know how to listen to carpenters or plumbers or corn farmers in Kansas. I had lots of MAGA friends in Hong Kong, and we talked all the time, every day. We were friendly, we got along, but we disagreed on almost everything in politics and so on. And it didn't matter that much because we were nice to each other. We were respectful, we were nice. But when we argued forcefully. And I'm not very friendly when I argue. I sometimes get a bit too emotional, too wound up. And my friend knows how to wind me up. And when he calms down and talks normal, and when I calm down and talk normal, we're fine and we agree on a lot of things. So yeah, Trump won. So then you watch Stephen Woodford on his channel on YouTube, and he goes into his analysis about what happened and how Latinos and blacks shifted towards Trump and on and on and on. The politics don't matter to me at all. They're boring. DNC, RNC, I don't like them at all. They're not my kind of people. That's why I keep referencing Simone Weil's book, book about political parties. They're just a machine, a business that exists to perpetuate itself. If you follow politics, like I mentioned that podcast I've been listening to recently called Master Plan, which is a Lever podcast, you know that going back decades, hundreds of years, this game has been played the same way. And it's just a competition between two factions of the same team, which is global capital, exploitation, colonialism, warfare, and so on. And they fight among themselves for power, for prestige, for more money. Obscene amounts of money was spent in this last election by both parties, and it's just ridiculously absurd when you think about it. People aren't going to get good factory jobs in the States. The global economy is a thing. My friend was talking about, you're a globalist, I'm a globalist. I'm not a globalist. I just understand that there's a thing called the global economy, and logistics and trade and labor arbitrage and all kinds of other things, global commodities that need to be extracted and shipped and marketed and turned into consumer goods and whatnot. We're addicted to technology. We're addicted to modernity. And this is one of our problems. And we can't see our way out of it. The world is a black box to most people. And we're in this well. We're a frog in a well, and we can't see what's outside. We're in a box. I forget what Eric Lee calls it. Cricket box or ant trap or fish trap or whatever. Anyway, we're trapped. And I refer to Stockholm Syndrome. We're identifying with our captor. Our captor is religion and ideology, belief systems, and they go way back to the dawn of civilization. So anyway, what did Caitlin say? Caitlin said, Obama continued and expanded Bush's most evil policies. Trump continued and expanded Obama's most evil policies. Biden continued and expanded Trump's most evil policies. Now Trump is preparing to keep the streak going. The face at the front of the desk changes, but the corporation stays the same. So she goes on to say, Trump's insanely pro-Israel, Christian Zionism, AIPAC, I mentioned the Mersheimer book a million times, the Israel lobby. This is the thing, and politicians just can't get on with life without kowtowing to Israel. And Israel exists because the UK and the United States wanted a foothold in the Middle East where the energy is, a lot of energy, right? That we needed to have access to. And the dollar hegemon is all about energy trade and so on. The US dollar hegemon, right? And BRICS as a pushback to that, and so on. So if you understand these things, the picture gets clearer and the resolution becomes finer in your understanding of things. So Trump, insanely pro-Israel cabinet of bloodthirsty Iran hawks, suggests Trump is going to expand the evils of the Biden administration in the Middle East. This is a great example of the point I often make, that the empire uses Democrats and Republicans the way a boxer uses the jab-cross combo to set up knockout blows. So Democrats and Republicans are different from one another, not in ways they claim to be different, but in the same way the jab and the cross are used differently in boxing. Anyway, so I mentioned to him that I'm not interested in the culture wars issues. Sam Harris talking about identity politics. I don't care. Weinstein talking about his grievances, Jordan Peterson talking about his grievances, identity politics and woke and all this crap. I don't care. I'm interested in science, the natural sciences. I'm interested in human flourishing, in a better humanity, a better way of life, a better culture, a better socioeconomic system. And I'm interested in the causes of our predicament, the actual causes of our problems. And for a lot of us, we don't have any problems because we have technology, we have modern medicine, we have entertainment, we have warm houses, we have transportation, cars and holidays and all kinds of nice things. We spend a lot of money, we use a lot of natural resources, and we're just happy. I'm not a rich guy, and I'm not an elitist. I'm just someone who's interested in reality and the truth as far as I can know it, as far as I'm capable of knowing. So I am epistemologically humble because I know I'm just a human being. I'm just a person. I have limited capacity in my memory, in my knowledge, and all that stuff. And I know that. So I'm not really trying to preach. I'm just sharing my frustration and what I'm interested in, what I focus on, what I pay attention to. And you may pay attention to the shit show, which is very exciting and stimulating, like a drug, and hard to get away from. It's very addictive. I read a lot of news and stuff and YouTube, and a lot of it's been a waste of time. It's given me a window unto the world, but it's also been a colossal waste of time in many ways, not very valuable to me. So I'm trying to focus in on what's really valuable, what I think is really important in my final years as I, catapult myself towards my 70s, in the midst of the polycrisis and the absolute meltdown of the world because of our addictions, our faith in this ridiculously pathological socioeconomic religion. So, blame me for it. Point fingers, blame whoever for the election. The election doesn't matter. We continue business as usual in February, and nothing's going to change. We're going to burn more oil and gas. We're going to produce more stuff. We're going to continue doing what we do because it's all we know how to do. So that having been said, there's a blog by Eric Michaels, who's a very nice guy, I think. I've never met him. I've never talked to him, but I like his blog anyway. He's interested in Overshoot. He writes a lot of really good articles. It's all broken down with good headings, good titles. And he's brilliant. I suggest you read his stuff. I can't rewrite all this stuff. Eric Lee's done so much work in his own voice, in his own particular way. And Eric has done his, and some of them are really well done. And reinventing the wheel is just not a good use of time when I could be making stories that entertain people that might, you know, open them up to seeing the world in a different way. It's not going to change the world. Entertainment doesn't change the world. You know, We Are the World doesn't stop world hunger. But, you know, it's there, and we're storytellers and we love stories. So we have to develop a new narrative, a new story, and new mythology, a new way of looking at things. So he wrote this piece here, Our Actual Reality, the Disappearance of Modernity. Well, I've been saying this for a long time, but our way of life is coming to an end. We are not going to have cheap oil and gas in the near future. It's dwindling. Now, some people refer to projects in terms of decades. It's going to take decades maybe, but I think it's going to take generations, and we don't have generations. We blew it already. We should have started 50, 60. We should have started all this stuff in the 60s. We didn't. So we're really well on our way to overshoot, well on our way past peak oil, well on our way to extremely destructive to our habitat. Climate change, global heating, global warming, whatever you want to call it. And it can't be reversed. There are no technical fixes. You can't just suck the CO2 out of the atmosphere. It's big business to advocate technology because we're addicted to it. So everyone wants a magic bullet. Somebody's going to come up with something, right? We have spaceships and so on. So that's fine. You can believe in that. You can have faith in that. You can be an accelerationist. You can be a techno-optimist. It's all up to you. In my opinion, it's a fool's errand. Not to say that I would stop scientists and engineers from trying to find solutions to things, but in most cases, it's just a business proposition. So in this article, I have some things highlighted. He has this link to an article that's really good. In Axios, I think it was, is hunting and gathering really better than agriculture? Well, for a long time, before civilization really started to spread out, take over large-scale human societies, people did a combination of things. They'd be in a river valley or a river or wetland, and they might plant some trees, fruit trees and stuff that are permanent, create some gardens, but then they would also walk around and hunt and gather and move around a bit, like I said in my last thing. So, was that a good way of life? Did the Lakota Sioux have a nicer way of life than Europeans at the time? I don't know. I'm interested in the Middle Ages, and I realized that the Middle Ages weren't bad. There was a Renaissance in the Middle Ages as well, and living like that is probably wasn't so bad, right? And but there was still the War of the Roses, and later on the 30 Years' War. There was still a lot of rough things and plagues, for God's sake. The Black Death, that was rough. So I wouldn't want to throw out all things modern as we crash towards simplicity again, towards the Middle Ages or towards the Paleo world. And it could go that way. It could get that bad very quickly. A number of things could really crash everything. But you're not worried about it because, it's the weekend. UFC is on Saturday night and NFL is on Sunday and blah, blah, blah. Are you going to go to church or whatever? You're an evangelical and you're going to get all excited about Donald Trump and pray for him and whatnot. Whatever floats your boat. I mean, it's no business of mine, right? I'm just hoping that a few people, maybe some people on the fence, will get excited about reality and want to know about it. And if I'm helpful to one or two people in sharing my journey and sharing that journey with you, then I'm really happy. I'm not expecting to get friends out of this or to become popular. It's not going to happen. You know, you go to a party, you keep your mouth shut about this stuff because people don't want to talk about it, and you're not going to have a very good time. They're just going to think you're a weirdo and a doomsayer, doom and gloom, and they're going to hate you, right? It's unfortunate, but it's true. Like, people don't want to go, hey, yeah, let's talk about sustainability. Let's talk about eco-socialism. Let's talk about this or that. No, it's not going to happen. People want to tell you about how great their life was in the States before they left and moved to Portugal. And, you know, they were so successful and all this stuff. And their kids are geniuses and graduated from Yale. And, you know, they made a lot of money and whatever. And some people just want to tell you they're really great craftsmen. You know, we want to tell our autobiography. We want to do that autobiographical dance number that shows people how great we are. And we want to be money, because if we're money, we're going to make friends and influence people. And if we're just concerned citizens who want to hug trees, we're boring assholes. And don't talk about books and whatnot, for fuck's sake. Not everyone's adverse to these things, but most people are, I find, in my community. Anyway, in fact, many communities actually tried agriculture and civilization and returned to hunting and gathering, or even practiced a combination of both, something that local indigenous tribes here in Northwest Indiana engaged in. So he talks about that part of the world a little bit, and then the historical account of hunting and gathering. That article, which I'll just link to. So the article asks why hunter-gatherers refuse to be sedentary, or in other words, accept civilization and technology use as a way of life in today's world. Like, why don't they want the shopping mall? When, you know, it's ironic to me, extremely ironic, that people hate Russians and hate Chinese people and all that stuff. I've traveled, I've lived in these countries, and I've just seen all these countries, sorry, I bit my lip, all these countries become more and more Americanized over the years. So they look like us, they dress like us, they watch Netflix. There's a Disneyland in France, Shanghai, Hong Kong, you know, and Japan, for God's sake. So they have grocery stores, big box stores, all this kind of stuff. They just become more and more like us. You know, we're all on the internet. We all have smartphones. We all have access. So it's really weird that we want to go kill these people. Why can't we just collaborate with them? Work with them to solve problems and appreciate them. We all want to have a better life. We all want to be wealthier. We all want to be safe and well fed and have shelter and have family and friends, for God's sake. We're human beings. But, you know, going out there and saying we have to control everything, otherwise you're dead, is just stupid. What a waste of time. What a waste of energy. What a waste of passion. What a waste of resources. What a waste of life. And by the way, it is true that it's omnicidal. I mean, the wars in the Middle East aren't just killing people and children and babies and old men and women and soldiers and terrorists. They're killing everything. And we don't seem to care at all. We're all worried about, you know, Trump and Harris and all that, and all the culture war shit. I mean, it's worthless. It's nothing. It's useless. Why? Why do we focus on this crap? Because it's everywhere. Because it is modernity. It is technology. It's our addictions that we're all excited about. So this is something which can be particularly difficult for most people today to understand, primarily due to the psychological denial of Wetiko, and this is the Indian term, a function of the very cultural programming and indoctrination it enforces upon societies. Because Wetiko masks itself so well Most people don't even know that they suffer from it. And because they live in a world where they accept and believe, have faith in technology use, they will naturally find it difficult to accept that there are people who reject modernity, civilization, based upon their knowledge that it is metastatic and self-terminating. And this is important. Can we make the analogy that civilization is like cancer? Well, it certainly is destructive. So when we run around the world colonizing everything, we're killing things as we go. Dodo birds go away, and so on and so forth. But we don't value them. We don't care about that. We just want to get our stuff and do our John Lockean thing, transforming the world into our image, doing the God-man stuff, the big God thing. And I have some books on my website about big gods. Where did monotheism come from, and so on. So the fact there are communities of people who see all too clearly that the way most of us live is destined for the dustbin is spectacularly wondrous. It boggles my mind that most people today have never questioned any of the systems we live embedded within and seen that they are all unsustainable. Well, you know, if you say this to people, they're going to hate you, right? Our whole faith is in growth, and we're going to continue growing our economy and making babies, and our population's going to soar forever and a day. It's never going to stop. And somehow, you know, we're going to have a Dyson sphere around the sun, and we're going to be a multi-planet species and whatever. This is ridiculous. We evolved on this earth in this particularly unique and unusual set of circumstances, chemistry and biology and pressure and gravity and everything. We're earthlings, man. We're part and parcel of Earth life, of Gaia system. And we're not going to fit in on Mars or Venus or some other planet. Let's say there is another exact Earth out there, a twin Earth somewhere. We'll never find it. And it'll take light years to get there. And our bodies just can't survive in space for light years, no matter what movies you've seen. So we want to become a machine, because if I can put little Stevie Cleghorn, little Boulianti in a goddamn machine that can live forever and self-replicate by mining asteroids and getting the materials to build another newer version like Terminator, I'm going to last forever and wander around the universe and everything. Well, that's not going to happen. But in the meantime, it's way, way off, even if it were possible. And we're just going to be killing the planet, killing each other, and having the culture wars and living in the United States of new miracles. The disunited states, these two countries, red and blue, that exist in this republic we call the United States of America, just tearing each other apart. Meanwhile, people keep shooting each other. There's stabbings. People are addicted to drugs. We blame it on Mexico. The only reason there are drug cartels in Mexico is because Americans love to do their drugs. It's because of American gangsters, American dealers, natural-born American killers who run around the world selling drugs to people. They're making money doing it. And they need money. They need swag. They need status. So, you know, gangsterism becomes a big popular thing in the United States. This isn't coming in from foreign countries. This is natural to human beings. Gangs of New York, right? Go to any time in our history, throw a dart at a historical timeline, and feast your eyes and ears on the mayhem and destruction and violence. We are violent people. It's a miracle we can go out to shopping malls and not kill each other, and drive and obey the rules and not have 1 billion more automobile accidents. It's amazing to me that we can do that. But it just goes to show that human beings are capable of this level of cooperation and love and care and consideration and moral responsibility and ethical responsibility. It's fantastic that we can do that at all. So it makes me think it's at least remotely possible that we could have a different socioeconomic system and we could live in a better world. A more peaceful world. So yes, I wrote a piece. Where are all the peacemakers? I don't want to vote for any warmongering prick who's stuck in this Wetiko disease. I don't care about these people. They're grotesque to me. They're evil. They're pathological. They're sociopaths, psychopaths. In my last post on Cospelon Globe Hacker blog, I'm talking about the dark tetrad, and that's what these people are. And if they're not genetically prone to psychopathy, then they're made by the system, by the education, by the belief systems. They're turned into these wicked zombies, these vampires. And I look at people like Mark Rubio and I just think they're sick. And so I'm sorry, in my opinion, I can't get behind them. I'm not excited about them. They're not my people. They're part of a disease. They need to be gone. I'm for peaceful revolution. I'm for peaceful transition and change, but I wish these people would go away because you're never going to change their mind. So my hope is that young people will get switched on, masses, billions of them, and push back and tell these idiots that we don't care about you anymore. But that's not going to happen. So that's why I say that circumstances is the most brutal, strict dictator we will ever know, because at some point the circumstances will just change and we'll have to run around like chickens with our heads cut off trying to figure out how to adapt. And it's going to be painful, the whole process, and it's going to be gradual, but it's going to happen faster and faster over time. It's sad. So yeah, people don't question that. And so Dan Vey commented on a recent podcast post. He made a comment here that's pretty interesting. So our complicity with ecocide makes us schizophrenic, which is a sane response to an insane society. Health can be restored by shifting to resist and take action against structural oppressions, which shifts not in individual behaviors, but in large-scale organized actions acting to change complex systems. Well said, my friend. I've said it a million times badly, but whatever. Continuing, a supplicant politics suggests that if environmental activists only beg hard enough, their governments will be moved to see the error of their ways and implement radical actions for course correction that will steer us away from the path of extinction. Doomers say the systemic dysfunctions are incurable, that the military-industrial complex is too invested in every level to give us more than lip service to radical changes in agriculture, energy use, war-making, and what have you, and that the ecological consequences are baked in and beyond anyone's efforts at reform or bargaining tactics. Too late, folks. We're fucked. FUBAR. Well, what a stupid way to live. I mean, don't you want to at least try to figure out what's going on, try to understand reality since you're alive, since you have a brain, since you're a human being, and then maybe do something in concert with other people, in harmony with nature, to try to shift things? I mean, I think that's exciting. I think that would be a good way to live. I'm old. I'm in my late 60s, but still, I'm still inspired by it. I still want to do something. And I was talking to a Portuguese friend the other day, and her daughter is 15. And at school, they study overshoot. They study climate change. And to hear her talk, the 15-year-old, is amazing to me because they're learning about this and they know what to expect and they're unhappy about it and they want to grow up and do something. So she wants to be a biologist and she wants to grow up and do something positive for the world because she's being educated about this stuff. In the United States, they don't do that. They want to put 10 commandments on the wall and you homeschool you and bring you back to that level of education. I'm not for that, folks. I believe education, the right kind of education, the right kinds of books can be transformative and positive. And I just can't stomach our dumbing down or the idiocracy. So it really, really winds me up when people call me and tell me I'm an elitist because I want people to be more aware of how reality works. So the psychological matrix of acknowledging one's ethical responsibility for the predicament of civilization and our role in perpetuating it is indeed crazy making. The obstacles are great. And if the best we can do is be happy hospicers, witnessing the inevitable loss of every part of our nature as our species endures a bloody and apocalyptic endgame, it wouldn't surprise me if there are some screws loose and blown gaskets here and there. So imagine this. They're talking about having a war with Iran, having a war with China, a real war, a hot war. Well, of course, they're going to start out Cold War style, as Mersheimer, the realist, talks about. And is that going to work? Is that going to help anybody, having a Cold War with China? Just continuing the badgering, the surrounding, the militarism. Of course, the military-industrial complex has a lot of jobs, and if you invest in that business ecosystem, all the feeder companies to the military-industrial complex, you're probably going to, make some money, which is good. But it's not going to help us in the long run or at the moment unless you work for the military-industrial complex. And like I said in my last blog post, if you're a technologist or if you help design computer chips or if you work with data, whatever jobs are out there that the military-industrial complex needs. Otherwise, you're going to be manufacturing shoes and socks at some factory in Oklahoma or Arkansas or wherever the red country is, while these elitist assholes on the coasts, Colorado and Washington and California and New York, sit around with their thumbs up their ass, sucking their dirty thumb and reading books. And you hate each other. You hate those assholes for being so smart. Well, I don't like elitists either because I think, Democratic assholes from Brown University are just as sick with Wetiko as anybody else, any red guy, MAGA Nation dude. So things are really nuts. It's a mass spiritual crisis. So John Vervecke and all these people, Jamie Wheel, and, we have to think about the spiritual problem and come up with a new religion and so on and so forth. We don't need a new religion. We need to study nature. We need to listen to nature, as Eric Lee says all the time, because nature does have all the answers. It's a mass spiritual crisis far beyond any spiritual fix or psychedelic medication, as it demands a deep acceptance of our role in this destructive narrative. Coming to terms with this acceptance is the default outcome, whether or not anyone takes steps to engage in therapy. Although therapy may help motivate priorities about what one chooses to do with this wild and precious life. So it's vitally important to assign blame, as this simply projects one's emotions out into the wider society and negates any personal responsibility of his or her own. So yeah, you're sick, you're a drug addict, you need help, you need medication, you need a doctor, you need detox, you need therapy, you need to deal with your trauma or whatever, a la Gabor Mate or whatever. You don't need to be thrown under the bus or thrown into prison, for-profit prison that has to keep the beds full, otherwise you're going to lose shareholder value. It's just ridiculous. So zeitgeist, these kind of movements, they have the right idea, but they just fall short because they really don't want to get into the sacrifices one has to make to really learn about nature. And if you ask people to do that, they hate your guts because you suggest they have something to learn. How could you do that, you elitist, pompous prick? That's what I get all the time. Inevitably, as Dan Vey pointed out, beneficial personal behaviors to reduce overshoot will not have any real effect upon any of the larger systems surrounding us unless and until said behaviors gain mass appeal. This means that one can still practice his or her own ethics regardless of whether other people choose to follow those practices, keeping in mind that few people will access such a challenge. So I always say, who's going to sacrifice an hour a week away from their screens or their addictions to try to learn about how nature works, about reality, whether it's economics, whether it's philosophy, whether it's chemistry, whether it's, political philosophy, anything. And in particular, the natural sciences, a Carl Sagan type thing, So he talks about how these different movements that he's explored, which I also explore, and I feel for him. He says, quite some time ago, I looked into different movements such as degrowth, transition towns. Like I was looking at Jim Rutt's Game Bee thing, and they're not going anywhere. And they are elitists. I mean, we're all elitists, right? Whether you're a good guy like Nate Hagens, you're talking to elite academics and experts who've been working for decades in their field, but we're all incapable of doing anything about it. So there are stages. One stage is learning what the predicament is, what the problems are. It takes time. You must have education. You must have consciousness raising. You must have the conversation, but it's not enough. So the Venus Project, that was well loved by Peter Joseph and his zeitgeist thing. And similar variants, permaculture and other back to the land movements. I wanted to understand why they failed and whether any of them could be successful. Also, with a lot of these organizations, you may think I'm an arrogant asshole. Okay, I'm really not, but you may think so because of my manner of speaking to you. But I'm frustrated, and it's really reflects my frustration more than thinking I know something more than you do or whatever. But the thing is, people are arrogant. They're consultants. They want to be the center of attention. They want their business, their model to continue and get more and more followers and more popular and so on. It's not ecumenical. Interfaith, like let's all collaborate together. You've got some good elements, the other guy has some. Let's figure out what works. Let's keep talking with one another. Let's understand and break down the core, most crucial elements of what we're concerned with and what we need to do, and focus on those. And we can work the details out as we go. But we really need to come together into a strong coalition across nation states, a mass movement that's going to take power away from these capitalist pigs. Now, if you're a capitalist and you have some investments, you've made some money. I'm not saying you're a pig, but a lot of people really are pigs. They're greedy. And that's why I keep referencing the 7 deadly sins. They're a thing, whether you're Catholic or not. They're a thing. And unfortunately, many of us are just caught up in that. Ultimately, I discovered many of the same processes within each movement that doomed each one to failure, including, in many cases, faulty assumptions to start with. So this entry, he has an entry about the Venus Project. He has an article about degrowth movement, about self-sufficient communities, like Arvol talking about intentional communities. We're white. We're ethnically pure. We're Platonic, Neoplatonic, Neoplatonism, whatever. And we just want to live in our community and be left alone. We want to be supported, get some money from the government. And you guys, you black folks or you Arab folks or whoever, you brown folks, you can live in your intentional communities. Just don't bother us. We want to live like this, you live like that. That's not going to work. It's just not going to happen. We're human beings, okay? That kind of breakdown and splintering isn't going to work. So he has some articles. It seems that most people forget specific characteristics about us and instead develop a romantic notion about who we are. So Curtis Yarvin talking about Queen Elizabeth and Carlisle and whatnot, thereby denying certain realities that cannot be done away with. The violence of our species, typically a male trait, is one of those traits that has stayed with us since the beginning. Still, there are other specifics as to why these types of movements never gained a foothold in mainstream society. And there's another article I want to talk to you about why these back to the land movements didn't work in the 60s and stuff. I'll do that some other time. But anyway, violence, okay? Chimps, bonobos, our closest ancestors, they're violent. They kill each other. It's in our genes. But we also have this way of cooperating. I go to the airport. There's all these planes on the tarmac. I wait patiently with a bunch of other strangers, get into a flying tube, go up to Amsterdam, and it's all smooth and facilitated by wonderful technology, and nobody kills each other. There are no Karens on the flight. And these planes are taking off as I speak right now, flying all over the place. You have these maps with satellite views of the airplanes, how much air traffic there is. It's mind-boggling. And you have these great maps of, Earth's impact. I lived in mega cities my whole life. Tokyo, 26 million people, I don't know. Shanghai, 26 million people. Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, 26 million people, whatever it is. I was in Mumbai, millions of people. I lived in San Francisco. You might as well just put the whole West Coast in the mega city realm, because from San Diego to San Francisco, it's more or less, yeah, there's space between, but big cities, right? I used to go to that Shibuya crossing all the time and see thousands of people go across the street when the light turned green. It's mind-boggling to me. It was always mind-boggling to me when I was in Tokyo. It was just amazing. But somehow all the people there lived in peace. They followed the rules. They were polite. It's amazing. So if we can do that, and all go to work in these little offices and live in these tiny little apartments and go out for beers and yakitori, if we can do that, we can do anything. We don't have to be violent. We don't have to. We can cultivate the better angels of our nature. And I'm not saying everything about the world we know is bad. I'm a big fan of all the things in the world. I'm talking to you, I'm looking at a Lumix camera talking to you. My computer's open. I'm recording. You know, I travel and so on. So I'm not a hypocrite. I just think we need to do better, and we need to do it really fast because we're running out of time. The exuberance is about to get snuffed out. So he mentions this overshoot. You know, I keep talking about William Catton, overshoot, and he talks about the age of exuberance, right? And so on. Well, this exuberance is about to go away. And you're going to see, MAGA Nation, that by the end of this 4 years and the next 4 years of even more conservative wackos, you're going to see that it's not going to get any better. And I don't know if your children are going to go off and have to get blown up or whatever, but groceries are going to go up. Housing's going to go up. There, you know, Jared, what's his last name? He wrote a good piece about housing and inflation and how we can't fix it in our system. It doesn't work that way. So you're not going to get more. You're going to want more because you're conditioned to want more, but you're not going to get it unless you are highly competitive, capitalist, a clerk, a professional in the great game, serving the big players, you know, sucking up to Elon Musk, working for Starlink or whatever, one of his companies, making a living, and you can be proud and all that stuff. Given the time constraints we face, I'd say that most any idea or plan or even an entire collection of them is about 4 decades too late. And I'd agree with that, but it doesn't mean we give up, right? Because it's interesting to fight the good fight. It's exciting. It's vitalizing. It's a wonderful, inspiring thing to do. Reality is interesting, I think. While I miss the ignorance I once held for the optimism bias, we talk about biases, heuristics, you know, loss aversion is a big one. You know, negativity bias, optimism bias, that it could produce, I can't imagine suddenly being thrown into the reality I am now aware of through an extreme weather event or collapse or some other awful disease, or name some other consequence of any symptom of our predicament and overshoot. So you have pandemics, maybe nuclear war, you have war. I mean, look, you have your color revolutions, you keep pushing. Eventually, the badass mob boss in Russia invades his neighbor for good reasons of security and so on. Big war happens, proxy wars. And the only people who make money are shareholders in the military-industrial complex and workers in the military-industrial complex and politicians and their ilk. The big players, the billionaires, the money flows to the top. It doesn't trickle down, ever, not really. Knowing something about reality, about our predicament, if nothing else, it can reduce the shock of what you're experiencing now, what you're going to continue to experience into the future. And I believe it's going to take generations to turn it around, and we'll probably be down to 5,000 people left on the planet before we turn around. And then whether or not we evolve into something different, who knows? We might just make the same mistakes. Likewise, most people today can't really fathom the collapse of industrial civilization or the end of car culture or the disintegration of the electric grid. So for hundreds of thousands of years, our species has been alive. Somehow we survived. We had medicinal plants and whatever. Women gave birth to children, men hunted. And yeah, in the Middle Ages, if you lived past 5 years old, because infant mortality was very high, you could very easily live to be 60 or 70 or even 80 years old if you didn't get hit by the plague or something like that, which happened. Natural disasters, Mount Vesuvius blows up, pyroclastic flow, pyroclastic flow. Shit happens and it can kill you. So this is why I am constantly promoting people to get out, live now, while we still have a chance. And I'm the same way. I want us to take advantage of the good life if we can. It's very important. So I mentioned the Wetiko. Well, there's a good book I put on my book page, Dispelling Wetiko, Breaking the Curse of Evil by Paul Livy. And maybe I'll post about this also on my blog and put the links to all of this stuff there and some videos and stuff so you can get an idea before you take the plunge and read a book. It is a fact that Americans read less than ever. Young people read less than ever. We have more things we can look at, videos and so on, podcasts. But reading is important, but also curating your reading, knowing what to read is important. And you can tell me, don't tell me what to read. I read about the World Wrestling Federation, asshole, or whatever you read about. No, I'm not telling you what to read, but I wish you would read about these kinds of things so you understood how the world works. Then you won't be voting against your own best interests all the time. It's the definition of insanity to keep going through these political cycles, administration after administration, expecting a good outcome and never getting one, always having something to complain about, always being dissatisfied, always feeling like things are going in the wrong direction, even if they're not. Making the same mistakes over and over again is the definition of insanity. America's insane, man. And, Western, modern, industrial civilization is insane. But everybody's talking about Western civilization and, we got to be cultural Christians and whatnot. That's not going to help us much. Pray. Thoughts and prayers. Pray, pray, pray. But, we still have work to do, and the work is in the real world. So Wetiko, the predicament of ecological overshoot, which is mentioned or referred to in practically every article this guy writes, is a behavior that we choose. This choice has been indoctrinated into most of society through this Wetiko. I don't know if that's the proper pronunciation. I've heard in different ways. Some people accent the E. Wetiko, I don't know. Wetiko psychosis, also known as colonialism. Now, colonialism is a thing, but remember in the old days, if you had a ship and you went to a new island and you could grow sugar there and dispel the native population and bring slaves in to do the labor and so on and so forth and make money and send stuff to the king and whatever. If you burned out the soil there and you couldn't do your business anymore for some reason, you would just go to another place and colonize that place, right? And neocolonialism is a thing too, only we use economic sanctions, we use proxy wars, we use not the East India Company or other coalitions or big corporate, what do they call it in Korea, kobles or whatever. We use big business. We coded capital. We have law and corporate speech, corporate persons and whatever, and international law and treaties and so on and so forth. And then we go around the world and we say, we need this stuff and you're going to give it to us. And we pay off some corrupt local politicians and then we go in and loot the place. Leopold of Belgium and the Belgian Congo and the Heart of Darkness and Apocalypse Now and all this stuff. This is a thing, okay? You can say, oh, you woke, piece of shit, elitist prick. It's a thing, man. It really is. And it doesn't hurt to look it in the face and call it a spade a spade. Uh, should we live this way or not? Another way to describe ego is what Paul Levy calls it, malignant egophrenia. I love that word, egophrenia. Egophrenia, schizophrenia. Well, it's related to schizophrenia and ego. I think he coined that phrase, that term, but it sounds really cool. So in the book, you'll understand what he means by egophrenia and malignant egophrenia. At the same time, the gambler cannot see all the different ways that this addiction is taking away his or her freedom, the amount of money being spent to continue the addiction, the time lost being a more productive member of society, and time spent away from family and friends causes mental degradation, as the desire for more gambling constantly steals more time, money, and energy that could have been spent doing something more rewarding over the long haul. So that's what we're talking about. We're going to do something that's better for posterity, good news for 10-year-olds, or are we going to just continue our addictions until the thing blows up, until that accelerating bullet train hits that granite wall, that huge Himalayan-sized granite wall, and just vaporizes everything. The sixth extinction is a thing. Understand it. We're losing species at an alarming rate. It's madness. And we need bugs, and we need birds, and we need soil, and we need mushrooms and all that kind of stuff. I often discuss our lack of agency due to the maximum power principle. So the maximum power principle. So your things in nature are always trying to maximize energy use and efficiency. So what's it say? Okay, Howard T. Odom. The maximum power principle can be stated during self-organization, system designs develop and prevail that maximize power intake, energy transformation, and those uses that reinforce production and efficiency. So this isn't just in civilization and industry. This is in biology, right? Trees and animals and plants. It becomes problematic when it's applied to, modern industrial, technological society. So MMP, which as a biological imperative predisposes us to witiko as soon as we come into contact with technology, because technology helps us harness far more energy and resources than we ever could without it. So think fire ape, think flint knives, think spears, atlatls, think language, think culture, think all these kinds of things. Theory of mind. So this makes life easier, more convenient, and frequently more leisurely for us in the short term. So it is very attractive and more or less sells itself as soon as one sees it in action, so to speak. So for me, living abroad and traveling since the 60s, I've noticed the Americanization of the world. And there are things very attractive about King Soopers and Safeway and TV and, sitcoms and whatever. And eventually it gets disseminated and adopted all over the world. So where there was no graffiti in Prague in 1970, in 1985, there's graffiti everywhere. Think about these cultural memes and think about music, rock and roll, jazz, whatever. People like it. It's attractive. And as is technology, pretty soon everyone needed a computer. And now a lot of us have it in wealthy countries. So as such, it is very addictive. Most people, unfortunately, don't look beyond the surface to find out the infrastructural platforms that make it all possible, including civilization itself, and provide the energy and materials for these technological devices, so they don't realize the destruction taking place in their name for their use of this technology. Little thought is given to the eventual consequences of continuing to employ technology use. Most people see no other alternative to continuing civilization. So we just have to continue. We need more, we need better. But at some point, ephemeralization doesn't work because we run out of resources. So if you have a Coke can and it gets thinner and thinner and thinner until it can't get any thinner, you still need to recycle the aluminum, and you still need to use energy to do that. So there's inputs there, and eventually those energy inputs become more expensive. If we electrified everything, if we had mass solar, whatever, we still need the materials to make the solar, to make the wind turbines. We still need to mine that stuff, so we still need to dig it out of the ground. That requires energy, diesel fuel, because it's really powerful source of energy, and gets the job done and can be transported around the world and whatnot. So we need that, and if we had mini fusion reactors, taking care of everything, that'd be great, right? But we would still use that energy, maximum power principle, to go around making more stuff and growing the economy and having a bigger population and making sure that everyone in Africa lived like everyone in Connecticut or a wealthy city in the United States. And eventually we're gonna hit the wall anyway. But this is not to talk about global heating, global warming, climate change, or any of that, because that's still locked in. We still have to deal with that somehow. We have to do it really fast. So maybe it's going to take not another 5 years and $5 billion to get to fusion. Maybe it's going to take 100 years and $500 trillion to get to fusion. We don't know. We can't count on that, but we're not going to change our way of life. It's too addicting, man. It's too much fun to go to an NFL game and scream and shout and dress funny and drink beer and whatnot. So, there's just a few people out there that are concerned about these things, and making it fashionable, telling stories, making it cool is going to come down to educating young people. And in America, we don't want to do that because we want homeschooling. We want to keep people Christian. We want to keep people magical thinkers. We want to keep people believing in conservatism or whatever your ism is. And so we're not going to do it. So there's a lack of agency in the maximum power principle. We don't have the ability to choose. I always talk about agency. What gives you agency? Knowledge gives you agency. Understanding what your choices are in detail, clearly, gives you agency. If you don't, you're just running around following fashion, bouncing off the wall like a pinball. There's a bunch of books about Wetiko out there. There's another one I haven't read yet, but it's called Columbus and Other Cannibals. And you can get that PDF form. So I probably link to that one so you can read that one. But once one understands the precepts contained within the books about Wetiko, you can't unsee it. I say that all the time, and in my film, that's a line they use a lot. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's a cliche, but it's true. So here's a quote from this Columbus book. What if we told you that humanity is being driven to the brink of extinction by an illness? That all the poverty, the climate devastation, the perpetual war. Now, if you're Steven Pinker, none of this is a problem, because we're better off than we were when we were cavemen. or we're better off than we were when we were Romans, or when we were in the Middle Ages, because we have technology and science and so on. This is why some people have a knee-jerk reaction to it. Science bad, progress bad, modernity bad. Yeah, it's a problem, but why is it a problem? That's the devil in the details. That all the poverty, climate devastation, perpetual war, and consumption fetishism we see all around us have roots in a mass psychological infection. What if we went on to say that this infection is not just highly communicable, but also self-replicating? According to the laws, remember egregores and that kind of thing? According to the laws of cultural evolution, and that it remains, self-replicating according to the laws of evolution, and that it remains so clandestine in our psyches that most hosts will, as a condition of their infected state, vehemently deny that they are infected. What if we then told you that this mind virus can be described as a form of cannibalism? Yes, cannibalism, not necessarily in the literal flesh-eating sense, or think zombies, right? But rather the idea of consuming others, human and non-human, as a means of securing personal wealth and supremacy. So think about that, right? All these zombie shows. The zombie is just a prop for the worst aspects and the best aspects of our nature within the confines of the story, the hero's journey, or whatever the structure is. And zombies are eating people. And people are eating everything else. So we eat the world, we eat the children, we eat the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start feasting. So it's a thing we do, right? We consume, we extract, we draw down. And we continue to do it at faster and faster rates, whether or not we have maximum power principle, or we do things more efficiently, or we have ephemeralization, or whatever. Like Buckminster Fuller, we connect all the electrical grids around the world. You know, there are things we could do to sustain a good life for 8 billion people, but it's a big undertaking, and it requires peacemakers, and we have to give up the war thing. We have to give up capitalism. Sorry about that. Because Wetiko masks itself. I'm not certain that there is any real way out of this. The primary reason for this blog in the first place, this guy's who's writing, I look at society today and wonder why people don't bother to look up facts. Most people just follow the herd and buy into what everybody else is doing, like American Psycho. I just want to fit in. You know, he tells his girlfriend in the taxi cab, you know, fitting in, man, groupthink, motivated reasoning. I would argue that, in fact, that so many people consistently look for change to occur externally is a symptom of Wetiko. So, I voted for Donald Trump, MAGA Nation all the way, dude. Yeah, just get ready. Things are going to get better. The people have spoken. You know, it was a landslide. It's a freaking, mandate. Well, he didn't win by that much. There's still another nation of people out there that don't like him. And a lot of MAGA people or Trump voters don't even like Trump. They just think he's going to do something different because something's wrong with the world. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't feel right. We got to go in a new direction. So let's do the Steve Bannon thing. Dismantle the administrative state. Throw the baby out. Throw the bathwater out. Throw the damn bath out. Start all over again. Re-engineer the whole thing according to the best values of American Western civilization. And it's just nonsense. It's a fantasy. I look at society, so he wonders why we look out for somebody to fix things, And again, there's another, bias, loss aversion. We just don't want to lose. We don't want to lose it. Don't want to lose. So, this beautiful piece here at the end of this, I'll read this and then I'll call it a day. And he posted on his Facebook, which is Shamanic Spirituality, Shamanism, this quote. It's a little piece, several paragraphs. Shamanism is a spiritual practice. It's not a religious practice. A distinguishing characteristic of contemporary shamanic spirituality is atheism. Religions, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, are theistic. They believe a god or gods created the heavens and the earth. Creating a god allows humans to project their own most destructive impulses into their god, as well as when Genesis declares that God gave humans dominion over all the earth. The God-man created in his own image is a cruel and murderous thing. So I always talk about that big God-man, and the Old Testament. Where's that coming from? Do you really think a benevolent, omnipotent, omnipresent, wise, beautiful creator who created the Goldilocks zone and all that stuff would be so murderous and genocidal and evil by our standards today after cultural evolution for thousands of years? I mean, really, I don't see it. So my Jesus is a peace Jesus. He's a loving Jesus. He's a pacifist. He's an environmentalist. He's an eco-socialist, my Jesus. And for other people, their Jesus has an AR-15 assault rifle and is tactical, and he's going to kill all the bad guys and just save you because you believe in the right kind of Christianity, the right sect. So you're going to be fine. And obviously, this life doesn't matter. The earth is just for us to exploit. Kill everything that moves if you have to. But you're going to go to heaven, and if you're a Muslim, you're going to have a lot of raisins. When you get to heaven, you've got plenty to eat. And this is popular now. It's cool to become, I was a Christian, but now I'm a Muslim. YouTube station. I was a Muslim, but now I'm a Christian. YouTube. I was a Christian, but now I'm a cultural Christian. I was a cultural Christian, but now I'm born again. I talk about religion. I talk about atheism. I talk about new atheism. I talk about Christopher Hitchens. I talk about whatever. It's still a big popular thing. If I had a channel like that, I'd get many more followers. People love this stuff. So continuing, contemporary shamanic spirituality believes in a scientific description of the origin and evolution of every living thing. Some living things are animate and some are inanimate. The animate living things comprise everything from bacteria to bison, and you need everything from bacteria to bison if you're a human being. Whelks to whales, rhododendrons to redwoods. The inanimate living things are rocks and water, glaciers and geysers, all originated from elements created in an unfathomable Big Bang or whatever it was, and the ensuing innumerable supernovas. Sounds like Carl Sagan. And the ensuing billions and billions of innumerable supernovas. Not very good, Carl Sagan. I used to do a good Carl Sagan. Shamanic spirituality accepts that the origin of whatever exploded in the Big Bang is presently unknowable, and so shamanic spirituality is essentially a mystery tradition. And I happen to like mysteries. So I don't need to know it all. I don't need to follow someone that's going to tell me what to think or say that they know it all. Ben Shapiro, he's a genius. He knows it all. And people love that because they want to be told what to think, and they want to think that they know it all. And that this guy, Sam Harris, and knows it all. And if they listen to Sam, they're going to be smart people, or whatever, whoever it is. So continuing, arising from its holistic worldview, shamanic spirituality is free of the arbitrary distinctions, us versus them, Christian versus infidels, Israelis versus Palestinians, Russians versus Ukrainians, Republicans versus Democrats, capitalists versus socialists, that are the cause of wars and genocides. Creation of an other taps into a vicious violence arising from the deep human unconscious. Shamanic spirituality has never perpetrated a genocide. It has not murdered thousands of children or razed entire cities. Shamanic spirituality would not invent nerve gas, nor would it invent and then use nuclear weapons to incinerate hundreds of thousands of human beings. I get so frustrated when my friends, baby boomers, talk to me about the inevitability of nukes and we had to drop them on Japan and all that stuff. It shows me that they don't have an imagination. Yes, it happened. Yes, there were good rational arguments for using nukes and so on. Rationalizations, justifications, logic. But did it have to happen? That's very controversial, contentious even. And that's not the point. The point is we have to avoid this kind of thing. Not justify it and feel self-righteous, We had to do it, man. Hey. So religion has spawned derivatives, most notably capitalism, which is why I refer to our social economic system as a kind of proto-religion. Capitalism is a destructive offshoot of the us versus them dichotomy. Capitalism relies on the distinction between owner and worker, which gives rise to poverty versus wealth and rich versus poor. Class distinction, right? Class consciousness, class war. In the contemporary world, poverty is associated with sin. So you have prosperity gospel. God wants you to be rich. Send me $20. You'll get $200 back. God will make sure of it. So capitalism is a destructive offshoot of the us versus them dichotomy. Capitalism relies on the distinction between owner and worker, which gives rise to poverty versus wealth and rich versus poor. In the contemporary world, poverty is associated with sin, and the wealthy are given dominion over the impoverished. So we love Donald Trump because he's rich. We love Elon Musk because he's rich. We love them because they're famous. The lifestyles of the rich and famous, and we're addicted to it. We love our gangsters, even though they don't give a flying fuck about us. Elon throws away women, get another baby making machine, trade them in. Work is the creation of religion and capitalism. Think, Calvinism or whatever. Industrialization and the concept of property are creations of capitalism. Think John Locke, Adam Smith, whatever, all that kind of thing. The very concept of time itself is a creation of capitalism. So people say time is the currency of life. It's not time. That's a construct that we came up with. Life is the currency of life. Timekeepers, clocks, are necessary to capitalism's functioning, assuring that people work during work hours and then worship the system of domination and control during their time off work. In the shamano-spiritual society, collaboration is the highest value, and ruinous competition does not exist. So there's fun competition, and then there's ruinous competition. I think you know what I mean. But it's interesting, you have to work and then you have to worship the system when you're not working. So, you're watching Billions, or you're watching some TV show about Dallas or something. So misogyny is yet another derivative of religion. Women are othered in contemporary male-dominated society. Their opinions are devalued. They do not make as much money as men for the same amount of work. They are abused and raped. In a society founded on shamanic spirituality, women and men are equals. Women hold positions of power. As in indigenous cultures, the grandmothers have a final say on important matters. So think about this country in the Middle East that gets all excited about raping prisoners and raping women and all that kind of thing. And they say it out loud. They go to Amsterdam and they walk around the street chanting it in airports and on the street and all that kind of thing. Where does that come from? So the values that animate a shamanic spiritual society are fundamentally kindness, cooperation, and a deep transpersonal connection with every living thing. Tree hugger, idiot, libtard, fool. In the you don't know how to get girls to do webcam work, man. You're nothing. Do you have a Ferrari? Dude, do you have a Ferrari? You don't have a Ferrari, do you, loser? So in the capitalist worldview, a tree is merely a profit potential. In shamano spirituality, the tree is a fellow living being worthy of respect for its contribution of oxygen for all our relations to breathe. Everything. Horses breathe, Squirrels, chipmunks breathe, humans breathe. In the shamano spirituality, the tree is a fellow living being worthy of respect, okay? In spirituality, a human will sit in meditation with the tree, opening to communication with the tree. So think about Buddha, right? Siddhartha. Think about Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree, emptying his mind and finding out what's important. Shamans bless a tree before cutting it down and express gratitude to the tree for its giveaway of wood for a fire and warmth. Like these native rituals of, blessing game when you've killed a buffalo or a deer or something. Giving thanks. Reflect on your thoughts as you read this essay. Did you find yourself dismissing the possibility of an alternative to religion and capitalism? Dismissed it. Dude, you're a loser. You don't kick ass and take names. You're never going to be the champion. How are you going to become a hedge fund manager thinking like that? Right? Wolf of Wall Street. What emotions came up for you? Your answers to these questions expose the degree to which religion and capitalism has infiltrated your thoughts. Did you hear a small voice wishing the world of shamanic spirituality could be real? Well, it can be. We can collaborate with each other to grow our food. We can design a social system that will produce doctors and engineers who are motivated by kindness and cooperation across nation states and cultures. We can climb off the hamster wheel of capitalism and reclaim our lives for the purely human pursuits of spirituality and mutuality. We can realize the dreams of humanity rising, which will always materialize if we work for them. I don't know how to say it. It's a phrase in the Lakota language. It reflects the worldview of interconnectedness held by the Lakota people of North America. This concept and phrase is expressed in many Yankton Sioux prayers, as well as by ceremonial people in other Lakota communities. And I think of the that's what I wanted to share with you today. So I would get that to spelling Witiku, breaking the curse of evil, and read it and think about it. Can you imagine a different way of doing things? Do you have the capability to imagine that? Or is your brain so completely indoctrinated with business as usual that you can't imagine it? Are you going to put your faith in these politicians that are suffering from this mind virus that's so pernicious, evil, and destructive that I call it an omnicidal religion? So we could do better. We could live nicer lives. I'm not an elitist. I didn't cause the problems that created MAGA Nation. I loathe it. I'm not interested in the culture wars. I want to learn from nature. As Eric Lee says, listen to nature. Nature has all the answers. And I think he got that from somebody else. But it doesn't really matter. When we meet people like this, like minds, good hearts in the world, there are people. And we can share ideas and steal from one another and share each other's ideas in the hope that young people in their millions, tens of millions of young people around the world will get together and tell these pigs suffering from Witiku to go away. We want control now. We're going to live a different way, and we don't want anything to do with you. So divestment and, divesting from, opting out in whatever way you can, whatever small way you can of this system, giving it the bird, telling it to F off whenever you get a chance, go ahead and do it. Every little bit helps. And follow this channel. I'm going to move things to Cospelon channel later. I hope if there's 2 or 3 of you that like this, you'll follow me there. As I said before, I'm going to explore different socioeconomic systems, and I'm going to explore what we need to do to create a mass movement to make that happen. And I'm not telling you that I think I'm going to inspire anything. I'm not Peter Joseph or somebody like that. I'm not Daniel Schmachtenberger. I'm not Jim Rutt. I'm not a Game B dude. I'm not the man. I'm not the CEO. I'm not the boss. I'm not the priest. I'm not the leader. I'm just another person that wants to invite more people to think about reality and nature. And so I'll explore what we have to do, what we might have to sacrifice. And that's my own journey. And if you want to go on it with me, that's fine. I will be curating as usual. So I'll be introducing you to other bloggers and writers and intellectuals and leaders and so on, experts that do this kind of thing, so you can learn from them, because I can't produce all this. I don't have the capacity. I'm not that smart or capable. I'm not a professional. I'm not an academic. I haven't written several books. I'm not a big shot. I'm a nobody. I'm a nothing. But I care, and I love life, and I want to share my journey if you're interested. So if you are, click like and subscribe. I have to say that. It's so cliche. It just, it's just cringe, but I have to say it. And share the video with some people so maybe we can, my hope is, I always think of my audience as people who probably haven't read or experienced what I have. And so they may be curious, like I was curious about Pareto or, Machiavelli, or, so I read up on these things, the Vietnam War, the Middle Ages, Eleanor of Aquitaine, whatever. You get interested in something, you look into it, or a hobby like archery or something like that. And so, it takes a while to build this worldview, but maybe there are people out there that are curious, like there are bi-curious people or whatever. Maybe there's some reality-curious, nature-curious people out there who think that the word socialism is evil. I'm not a socialist. I'm not a communist. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a fucking neoliberal. I'm just somebody who cares about learning about nature and reality and exploring the possibilities of a better way of managing economia. I forgot how to say it in Greek, but a better way of managing human affairs on the planet so that it's pro-life. And I don't mean pro-life in the sense of women's health issues. I think of it in terms of everything. So the animate and the inanimate life of creation, whatever started it all, I don't know. It's a mystery to me, like the shaman said, but I'm interested in understanding and communing with the mystery, and I'm thankful. Thankful for everything and for the blessed great luck of being alive. And yes, I'm fortunate. I was born in the United States in the 1950s, and I grew up in a pretty special time. I'm pretty spoiled because of that. I got to travel a lot because my mother was a travel agent, and because by accident I liked traveling, and I got jobs in other countries. And then pretty soon I was the China guy, or I was the Japan guy. And I never got to go back to the United States and do anything. We're opportunists, you know. I took the opportunities I could get and managed to survive and didn't get banged up abroad, which I think comes down to being respectful and curious and kind and considerate and outgoing and friendly and so on and so forth. Certain traits that maybe allowed me some good instincts, trusting my intuition and so on. It wasn't about, you know, carrying weapons and being tactical and risk management and all that stuff. I just happy-go-lucky, went about my life, doing whatever work I had to do. And like most people, when I was younger, I did a variety of things. I was a carpenter. I did work in catering and the restaurant, food and beverage industry and so on before I went into other things. And if I were a blood-sucking zombie vampire capitalist, I'd be rich, but I wouldn't be talking about this stuff. Very few capitalists do, who are really into it. They don't care. They're not concerned about these things. And billionaires generally aren't, because you don't become Jeff Bezos by reading what I read. And Jeff Bezos is a pretty amazing person, amazing manager, entrepreneur, and all that stuff. And we use his services all the time, whether we know it or not, because he provides a lot of services for the United States government and other governments, and for the security state and the military-industrial complex and so on. That's where he makes his money, not from Amazon, not from selling books. So anyway, these people are amazing. And Elon Musk is an amazing huckster and con man and gangster. But he's not a brilliant engineer or a genius, and he doesn't care about you, basically. And neither does Donald Trump. So if you put your faith in that kind of thing and just want to believe because belief feels good, you're missing out on reality. And reality is really exciting and wonderful. So I want more people to cop to reality. So if, like my friend, if he thinks I'm an asshole because I don't like Trump, okay, then I'm an asshole. That's his opinion. And it's fine with me. I'm not doing this to be well-liked or make a lot of friends. If I wanted to make a lot of friends, I would hang out in Porto or Lisbon, and I'd be at bars talking to people, and I'd have friends. Drinks for all my friends. I'd be a barfly, like in Hong Kong, and hanging out with the expats and drinking. Or I'd be doing something else. I'd be at the evangelical church, blissed out, singing and praying and feeling God's love. I'm not criticizing that. If that's who you are, that's who you are. If you want to hate me, hate me. But there may be some people on the fence, and they might want to wade into the world of reality and science, the natural sciences, and into physics, and into nature, and into alternative ways of managing human social, political, and economic affairs, managing our resources, appreciating our resources, like in shamanic spirituality, actually being thankful for the lithium. At the end of the day, we're not going to have a whole bunch of electric cars, electric grid that's all, efficient and all that stuff, because we're going to run out of stuff. And before that, we'll probably kill each other in wars. And we'll have pandemics and maybe nuclear war. Who knows? We got to get away from it. We have to learn how to manage things better, but we don't do it, so we're headed for disaster. Sorry about that. But if more people understood these things, we'd have a chance. It has to be a mass movement, mass consciousness raising, dawning of the age of Aquarius. But it has to be reality-based. It has to be grounded, centered, right? Realistic, resilient. Because that's what it takes. You have to be realistic about these things. We're probably going to lose. But at least we'll know what's coming. And at least we'll smile to ourselves and say, isn't nature wonderful? Aren't people great? Isn't this a wonderful life? And maybe we'll be nicer to each other, more respectful, more considerate, and so on. I get wound up when people call me and pretend like they know me and judge me. And I get wound up when people call me and want me to somehow, I understand Trump won the election. I don't care, nobody's going to get me to say that he's cool, or that he plays 3D chess, or that he and his people, his team, were geniuses. Like, Obama learned how to use social media and he got elected. He's a genius. That team was amazing. West Wing, whoa. I'm not interested. So I'll stop now. Lucky you. Bouillon tea. Out.